Shouldn't we have the link already? Yeah, you guys are.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Town of Islip September 9th Planning Board meeting. Some housekeeping items. If you're here for item number 3, Beaver Dam Brewing Company, that item has been adjourned, will not be heard this evening. We ask all applicants to keep their remarks limited to, we have 30 minutes on that? 30 minutes, and we ask those from the public to keep their remarks limited to 3 minutes so we can get everybody in at a normal hour this evening. First item on the agenda, Planning Board application, public hearing, Jetson Realty Corp., PB 2021-024, west side of Mj Boulevard, 1,450 feet north of Suffolk Avenue, County Route 100, Brentwood, 70 Mj Boulevard. Applicant requests the planning board special permit for the outside parking of unattached box trailers pursuant to 68-340.1P. Site plan modifications are also requested as part of this application. Good evening to the applicant. When you're ready, go ahead.
Good. Why don't you take this on? All right. Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Ryan T. Sensabaugh, attorney with Sir Tillman, Ballin, Adler, and Hyman, 100 Motor Parkway, Hauppauge, New York. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, Jetson Realty Corp. Also with me today is Thomas Walsh, the architect of record on the matter, Jacob Levi, and David Cohen. Jacob and David are both members of Jetson Realty Corp. As mentioned, we're here today before the board requesting a planning board special permit for the outdoor parking of unattached box trailers. There's also some additional site plan modifications associated with that request. The property at 70 Mj Boulevard is zoned L Industrial 1. The current site is used for the operations of Plasti Run Corporation, which is a paper converting and packaging company. They produce paper, towels, napkins, facial, and bathroom tissue. The products are catered to supermarkets, food service distributors, dollar item stores, and healthcare centers. As of 2017, Plasti Run itself had employed over 60 full-time employees. They then expanded in 2017, also working with the IDA with the town of Islip, and replaced a plastic straw factory that was operating in part of the existing building. The operations have now outgrown the existing building. Plasti Run would like, however, to stay within the town of Islip and expand on that current site. The Plasti Run does employ locally, and the granting of this application, as well as associated applications for this site, would allow them to expand the number of employees as well. The site is also utilized by Westbury Trailer Leasing and Repair. They operate from this site. It should be noted that the trailers on this site that are associated with this will be removed from the site no later than September 15th, 2021. In terms of site history, originally there was a 56,000 square foot warehouse and office building constructed on the site in 1965. This was constructed in the northwest corner of the property, leaving only the front area of the property undeveloped. Later in 1968, there was a CO issued for a 61,000 square foot addition to the original building. This likewise was constructed on the western portion of the site. Currently, as it stands, there is a one-story industrial building, 104,290 square feet. We have a total of 5 loading docks, and what is proposed now is a 34,861 square foot one-story addition to the existing one-story industrial building. This would include an additional 5 loading docks and parking for 12 unattached box trailers along the northerly wall of the addition. Of the box trailers that we currently have, some of them are utilized for storage on the site. The purpose of this application is to consolidate that storage and put it within a building so that we can avoid all the box trailers that are located in the front yard. With regard to the neighboring conditions, the property is located on Mj Boulevard, which is predominantly industrial location in the hamlet of Brentwood. All the properties located on the west side of Mj Boulevard, including the subject property, abut the Long Island Railroad track to the west. This track is not a standalone parcel, but rather it's right of way through the applicant's parcel and others. Beyond the Long Island Railroad track to the west lies the Saginaw Coast Parkway. With the exception of the parcel immediately adjacent to and north of the subject property that is zoned L Industrial 2, all the industrial parcels along Mj Boulevard are zoned L Industrial 1. Because access to the site from the north involves commuting through some of the residential neighborhoods, I do want to note also that this application will not result in a noticeable increase in traffic. Many of the employees are local, some of them commute together to and from work. Overall, the traffic will not change from what the current conditions are. Additionally, the operations of Westbury Trailer Leasing and Repair will no longer operate from this site, and this will also reduce truck traffic flow to and from the site. With regard to the special permit conditions, there are some conditions that I'd like to note going through there. I understand that there are no trailers that are located, section 68-341P1 states that no trailers are located within the front yard or second front yard setback. Currently, as shown, we have provided a site plan that gives the setbacks of these areas. The trailers are located no closer than 85 feet and 8 inches from Mj Boulevard as closest point, whereas the front yard setback for this district is 50 feet. Also, with regard to this requirement, states further that no trailer may be visible from any right of way. We understand that there are some issues with regard to that, and looking up and down Mj Boulevard, the conditions are consistent in that there are box trailers that are parked there are visible from Mj Boulevard. Notwithstanding that, the applicant would be open and would like to hear ideas in terms of how the screening would like to be done. We could add slats to the fencing, but we understand that you could still see beyond that. We additionally have trees, and we would put additional landscaping along that line. Some of the issues that we have with the site with regard to a hardship, the site had been developed with no rear side yards with approvals dating back in the 1960s. Additionally, we have an irregularly shaped parcel being located on a curve along Mj Boulevard, so you cannot block these uses just simply utilizing interior property lines and buildings along that side. With regard to the second requirement that the trailer parking area is set back a minimum of 200 feet from any residential use, the nearest residential use is located across Mj Boulevard and is approximately 230 feet from the nearest residentially zoned or used property. So trailer parking does meet this requirement. This requirement also states that it should be set back a minimum of 50 feet from any street. Again, I'd like to note that this is 85 feet, 8 inches from Mj Boulevard. Lastly, with regard to the requirement that there be, this should be the third requirement under 68-341P. All trailers and trailer parking areas are completely screened from view with fencing, landscaping, and berms at the direction of the planning board. Again, we'd be open to installing additional landscaping and working with the fencing, either that we have or installing new slats within that fencing or new fencing to help screen that area. But we do understand, as stated earlier, given the irregular shape of the site and the height of box trailers, that it would be difficult to screen this. With regard to the sites along Mj Boulevard, what I've provided to you is a package with exhibits A through F. As you can see on the 2021 aerial, there are a number of sites that do have outdoor storage of unattached box trailers. With regard to those unattached box trailers, there are 3 particular sites that you can clearly see from From MJ Boulevard, without additional screening, that would be at 50 MJ Boulevard, 100 MJ Boulevard, and 110 MJ Boulevard. Um, The conditions that we believe that we're proposing would actually improve the site significantly. There are quite a few unattached box trailers on this site. And again, what we'd like to do is consolidate those box trailers into an actual building to improve the look of the site, and would also be open to screening in any way that the planning board requests. At this time, just like to open up any questions that the board may have.
Thank you. Why don't we see if anyone's here for the public hearing portion? We'll get a staff report, and then we'll come back for questions. I do not have any cards that have come up. Did anybody come in later wish to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Ms. Wozniak to give us a report.
Thank you. The subject property is located on the west side of MJ Boulevard, south of Suffolk Avenue in Brentwood. And it's improved with a 100,000 square foot industrial building that was originally CO'd in the 60s. Tonight, the applicant is looking to further expand the building on site and obtain a special permit to allow the overnight parking of unattached box trailers. The building expansion will require planning board approvals for loading docks and overhead doors facing the street, a 48% parking relaxation, 68% overall landscaping relaxation, and a 77% front yard landscaping relaxation. The applicant is also going to need ZBA approval for FAR, side yard setbacks, and to allow 12 unattached box trailers instead of the permitted 10. Taking a look at aerial imagery, it's apparent that substantial noncompliance with the zoning code in regards to the parking of unattached box trailers has been ongoing for quite some time. In addition, the suggested location for the parking of the trailers is in direct conflict with the intentions of the zoning code, which states the trailers are not to be located within the front yard and shouldn't be visible from any right-of-way. The proposal seems to be too intensive for the site, and the property's proximity to residences does raise concerns regarding noise. Unfortunately, based on the existing location of the building toward the rear of the property, there doesn't seem to be an adequate location to park the trailers unless substantial changes are made to the site overall. Planning has significant concerns regarding the extent of the relaxations required and is unsure if any additional development can be accommodated on site.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Let Ms. Frugieri first.
Yeah, I just have a point of clarification to the applicant's attorney.
Yes.
You mentioned that this property had or enjoys IDA benefits.
That is correct.
And when did they receive the benefits?
The benefits were issued there's an application in 2017. The benefits were extended for a period of 10 years under pilot from the period of 2018-19 to 2028-2029.
Okay, so this parcel still enjoying the benefits of a pilot
That is
payment
correct.
in lieu of real property taxes.
That is correct.
And technically, the property is, I guess, owned by the IDA and leased back to the tenant?
So I believe it went to a lease agreement now
Yeah.
rather than ownership. So the property is still owned by Jetson, but it's leased and subleased back to Jetson.
Okay. I think you should probably check the inducement resolution with the IDA because in all likelihood, there's a clause in there for violations on the property. And this property has clearly been operating in violation with all the illegal outdoor trailers being stored there.
Certainly. We've been in touch with Executive Director Walser with regard to this site.
Okay.
So we've been in discussion with regards to what's being proposed to try to address the issues on the site.
Have you come up with any other alternatives besides what's before us tonight? Because this is a very intense development to put it in, I guess, simple terms, it's 20 pounds of potatoes. It's stuffed into a 10-pound bag.
Certainly. I mean, with regard to the site, what we're looking at, let me just pull the site plan here. realistically, I mean, with the operations of Jetson, and then they like to stay in the area, they do need to expand to an area where they can have the additional storage and manufacturing space. We do understand the issues outlined with regard to the loading docks facing the bay. Those are already pre-existing, and also in addition to the front yard parking of the trailers, we've avoided parking in the front yard setbacks, which is part of that code. It could be a discussion with regard to what is the absolute minimum we could provide, but what we're trying to provide is a site that will continue to work in the future without having to come back before the board or run into the same issue again with the trailers.
I understand what you're trying to do, and I happen to agree with the concept of, instead of having trailers just stored outside, having a building that stores, the product as opposed to storing it illegally in these trailers.
100%.
So, but the structure is quite large.
We've been very open in terms of like landscaping or whatever we need to do with regards to try to ease what the site conditions are. Right now, what we've proposed is truly just improving the site. I mean, we're pulling what is shown on 2021 aerials, 93 unattached box trailers.
Yeah.
We're trying to limit that to the extent we can. There are certain variances that we may be able to avoid in terms of, say, the number of box trailers, and trying to fall within the code at least on the number of box trailers that are being parked outside. With regard to the proposed addition site, is something I'd have to speak with the client about.
Yeah. This may be something that goes to the ZBA before it comes to us.
Any further questions from the board? Can you just speak to currently what's operating there versus it's going to be a change, there's going to be an intensification of use?
So with regard to the site, currently what's operating there, it's Plastic Run Corporation is the name of the company that is there. Plastic Run is involved in paper products, as I discussed earlier. Their operations continue to grow. It's just that they're trying to accommodate with that storage that they have. With regard to ramping up on operations and manufacturing, I think that they are handling the manufacturing within the status quo where they are. It's an issue of the product and what they have, and possibly more movement within there. We're not adding any new products. There will be no new entities working and operating out of the site. It'll solely be Plastic Run.
So are we talking ramping up more operations or just a matter of storage? Or a combination of both?
I'd say primarily storage, but I'd have to speak to the client just to confirm.
Okay. And then my follow-up question to that is, how many employees currently work there? And if you're ramping up, what is that going to do to the number of employees working there? Because I noticed staff did mention a significant parking relaxation, especially, which increases if you're increasing the square footage of the facility itself.
Understand. I know that further up in the northern portion of Mj Boulevard, there is a parking issue up there. I'm unaware of any parking issues on this site. Currently, there are 117 employees currently working at this site. The proposed addition, it really is for storage. So in terms of the number of employees, there will be an increase in employees possibly, whether it be taking some of those full-time, part-time employees. I believe about 113 or 114 of them are full-time, the other are part-time, whether making those part-time employees full-time or hiring a number of additional, maybe anywhere from 5 to 10. I don't believe it's going to be significant. But again, I'd have to confirm with the client as to the exact number of what we're looking at.
Yeah, because right now you have 113 spots, and if you're already at 117 employees.
Well, they're on different shifts.
You're increasing that, plus others coming in and out of there.
Certainly. I've been to the site multiple times, and even with the number of vehicles or unattached box trailers on the site, I've not seen a parking issue.
In terms of if there is increased manufacturing, will the hours of operation change?
With regard to the number of the hours worked, is that what you're asking?
Correct. Will the hours of operation change?
With regard to the hour of operation, I believe it would likely stay the same. There may be additional technology that would be purchased to help with that without having to go through a significant change in the terms of number of employees or with operational changes in terms of hours.
Okay. I'm going to turn to Mr. Brown for a couple of questions.
Yeah, just to follow up what Mr. Friedland was talking about, what are the hours now currently?
Could I consult the client just to confirm? Can I confirm with my client?
Sure.
So operations are currently 24 hours on the site. And that is for a 6-day period of the week. So Saturday, not on Saturday,
So 5 days a week, 24 hours a day?
6 days a week,
6 days a
24
week.
hours a week. Or 20, Friday is a half day as well. So are you?
I'm confused.
Fridays are a half day, so approximately 5.5 days.
Okay, and also, something that Mr. Ferrajari touched on, that you're going to need to go to the ZBA for approval for the FAR. Have you started the process or application with them?
We began drafting the application. We have not filed the application pending this hearing and receiving comment.
Okay, because that might be, might be the horse before the carriage. But that's something that I guess over then we could discuss with the planning staff.
I was under the impression that possibly we come before you, there may be some comment back that we conditioned upon certain changes to the plan as well as conditioned upon the BZA.
Right. And I concur with Mr. Ferrajari as far as the concept and what you're trying to accomplish. And I also agree with him in reference to the size of the building. It's just huge for the site. There's nothing left on the site. There's no landscaping. Not that there's a lot going up and down Mj Boulevard, but 77 and 68% relaxations on landscaping. There's just nothing here. There's not even a tree.
We have, it's tree lined along the entire roadway. So the entire roadway is blocked by trees. I provided that in, actually, if you want to take a look, I do have the street views.
I
just
do have
so
an
you can see.
aerial that I'm looking at that
Yeah.
maybe this is trees. Okay.
Okay.
All right. That's my questions.
Any further comments from the board? So at this point, from hearing the concerns from fellow board members and the staff report, I think there is some question that needs to be answered. I don't know if you got the answer also on whether or not you're going to be intensifying the production at the facility and increasing the number of employees. Did you get a specific answer on that?
If I can take a step back and allow me to answer that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for your patience. So with regard to this site, it would allow them to enhance the technology that they do have. That would result in about a 10 to 15% increase in their production, but it would not increase the number of employees.
Right, so from this, from my perspective, I'm not speaking for the entire board, but I would want you to go to the zoning board of appeals first. You have significant variances that need to be granted by them for us to even really consider this. But then still, when you come back here, there's still some glaring issues. The most obvious of the issues is you currently are on the property. And while maybe the parking works for your calculations for who's in there now, somebody moving into there with a increase in square footage of that building may have a parking issue. And the parking issue we're talking about now is a 48% relaxation, which is significant. I think, as you noted, there are cars parked up and down Mj Boulevard as it is, which becomes problematic. So, if you want to come back to us, I think part of the discussion you need to have with staff is what else can be done in terms of your wanting to increase the size of that facility. the landscaping, obviously what's there is what's there. Minor improvements can be made, but it's been operating that way. But in terms of allowing an increase to the size of the building is something that I would have a concern about in terms of as it relates to parking. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but if you're willing to talk to staff on that, then certainly to reserve and allow you to have some time to talk to staff. And then if your staff and you can work something out, then going to the zoning board to seek a variance, I think would be the way to go. If the answer is absolutely not, I don't want to waste your time or our time or your client's money to proceed. So that's sort of where I'm at. I'm only one member of the board, but I'm just voicing my opinion. Any more questions? Mr. Ruggiero, Mr. Brown, do you want to just?
Yeah, I'll just mention, just looking at the site plan that you have, did you look at taking the opportunity to square off the building rather than adding along the one side and then making all that where you're proposing the new building parking? Is that something that would work?
Oh, could I have the architect speak as to that?
So I'm
Could I
sorry.
have our architect speak as to that
Sure.
question?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Thomas Walsh, architect, 700 Veterans Memorial Highway, Hauppauge. So I understand Mr. Brown's point. The situation would be, it would render the property almost non-functional while we're trying to do that, where the addition being placed along the south property line would allow the existing truck court to work, obviously, within reason with the construction going on. Obviously, there's going to be improvements taking place throughout the existing parking lot eventually in terms of islands and things of that nature. But to fill in the front of the building, as you suggested, would pretty much render it non-functional during the course of construction.
Thank you. Mr. Moriarty?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to make it clear to the applicant, in the event that there's an interest in conducting discussions with planning staff, I think it's important to note that the larger message here is I think that building expansion is just too large. There's going to be a significant parking relaxation required now and continuing regardless of the reduction in the dimensions, but I think it becomes a more manageable application if that's the case. So I don't want folks to sort of just assume that we'll continue to have discussions with planning. Otherwise, my sentiment is consistent with the other board members that there's really not an appetite to approve this as it's currently being proposed. So I want to make sure that's clear to the applicant now in the event that you take the step back and come back with further discussions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moriarty. Anything further from the applicant on this?
No, sir.
Is there, based on the comments you've heard this evening, is it something that you and your client do want to work with planning staff on?
We would like to reserve and work with planning.
Okay, based on that, is there a motion? Mr. Moriarty. There's a motion by Mr. Moriarty to close the public hearing and reserve decision. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Brown. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? We're reserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 2 on the agenda, Planning Board Special Permit Public Hearing, Miguel Garzon, PB 2021-027, northeast corner of Brentwood Road and 2nd Avenue, Brentwood, 1825 Brentwood Road. Applicant requests a modification of Planning Board Special Permit conditions associated with PB 2008-036 in order to permit seating for the minor restaurant. Applicant also requests a Planning Board Special Permit for outdoor seating accessory to the minor restaurant in the Business 1 District pursuant to 68-272.1C. Site plan modifications may also be requested as part of this application. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Jose Tavares. I've got the client here with me also, just in case you need to ask him any questions, but basically we're proposing, he's proposing to add this exterior seating. we have a lot of the parents that use the soccer academy. Um, They like to wait, but they're trying to not wait as much inside because of COVID and everything else right now, and they do prefer the outdoor seating. To do that, we are trying to take that area, make sure that it's landscaped around it pretty nicely. It's proposing a low PVC fencing also to decorate it. We got the parking in front of the building, so we should be okay with that. But that's what he's asking for, basically.
Thank you. I don't have any cards for anyone who wishes to be heard on this. Did anyone come in who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Ms. Wozniak for a report. Just hand it.
Thank you. This application involves a La Espaquita Soccer Academy located at 1825 Brentwood Road in Brentwood. In 2008, the academy received a planning board special permit for a minor restaurant to permit a concession stand. However, the conditions of the special permit prohibited seating. Tonight, the applicant is looking to obtain a special permit for outside seating accessory to the concession stand. This is going to require a modification of the original special permit to allow seating, and then the additional outside seating special permit. The applicant is proposing to place the seats to the west of the building, screened by a small fence and landscaping. The addition of seating should have little effect on traffic and parking. So based on this, planning recommends the board grant the application, subject to the attached conditions.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Ms. Cruz?
My question is, will there be alcohol served? And what are the hours?
They don't have alcohol. The hours are usually around 4 o'clock to around 10 p.m., basically. And it's really only being used more, he's saying, between Thursday to Sunday, not throughout the rest of the week. But they do, I think they have wine and beer. They can serve that, but not liquor.
Can you bring that outside? I guess.
According to the conditions, I believe you could, as long as you don't take it outside of the property. I thought that's what the condition said.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yes.
Thank you. Any further questions? Is there a motion? Mr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, based on the staff, I'd like to make a motion to grant the application.
It's a motion by Mr. Brown to grant the application, subject to the covenants and restrictions.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, the application is granted. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
As I mentioned, item number 3 has been adjourned. Item 4 on the agenda, Town Board application, public hearing, 135 Pioneer Drive, Bayshore, LLC, CZ 2021-005, north side of Pioneer Drive, approximately 1,610 feet east of Santa Cruz Parkway, Bayshore, 135 Pioneer Drive. Applicant requests a change of zone from Business 1 District and Industrial 1 District to All Industrial Transition District, and a planning board special permit for a recycling center transfer station pursuant to 68-700C. Site plan modifications are required as part of this application. Good evening to the applicant.
Good evening. My name is John Lemire. I'm an attorney. With me is Mike Moranis, who's a principal in the engineering firm of Barrett Bonacci. We're a 2-acre site that, with the change of the transitional zone, we were seeking L1 industrial. So we're now here for the transitional. The other site was 1 business. It's a 2-acre site. The building was CO'd in 1954. It was industrial from then. It predated the distinction between L1 and L2. This applicant is in the redemption business. That's what we are. We're a redemption center, not a recycling center. We deal with bottles, plastic, and cans that we bail and ship out. We don't do anything else. There's no storage, no washing, no nothing on site. So this is really a continuous use. They've been there for 6 years. We're on Pioneer Drive, which I'm sure you are very familiar with. We might have some variances that we need for the ZBA. I've distributed a copy of the proposed site plan that Mike will take you through if there's any other questions. We're really conforming a use that's been going on, and we've really had no issues, so.
Good evening. My name is Michael Marinas. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New York. I work for Barrett, Bonacci, and Van Weel, our partner at Barrett, Bonacci, and Van Weel, 175A Commerce Drive, Hopog. I believe you all have a copy of the site plan. I just want to walk you through it briefly. The existing 2.1 acre site is bordered by Pioneer Drive to the south, Long Island Railroad to the north, commercial property to the west, and a residential use to the east. The existing building, 19,875 square feet, is proposed to remain. There was formerly a building addition on the east side, which was recently removed as required by the fire marshal. And that side of the property, we provide approximately 100 feet now to the neighboring parcel, and we are proposing to put in a 36-foot wide planted buffer along that area. We're proposing the existing Pioneer Drive access to remain, but what we'd like to do is provide either an 8-foot wide buffer along that road frontage, 12 feet or 25 feet, depending upon the exact location, and there are some constraints such as the existing scale, which prevents us from making the buffer a little bit wider, as well as access in front of the building a little further to the west. Where we're trying to allow for vehicles to pass back and forth. The proposed fence that we'd like to put in the front would be opaque, stockade, or some other non-see-through material. We are proposing to increase the overall landscaping on the site to the 20% criteria for the town. Other site zoning criteria, building height, FAR, all confirmed to code. There are some pre-existing setback issues, such as the front yard setback. We do have the 25 feet, but as I alluded to, we'd like to not have that completely landscaped in order to allow vehicle access. And the rear yard to the Long Island Railroad is one is required. We have had some conversations with planning, and we do expect that there'll be some upgrades to the drainage, pavement, and ADA access, specifically in this area. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have with regard to this.
Thank you. If that completes the application, I'll go to public comment and staff report, then we'll come back for questions.
Sure.
I did not receive any cards. Anyone wishing to speak? Did anyone come in who wishes to be heard on this application? Ma'am, come on up and you can fill out a card afterwards if you haven't done so. Just please state your name for the record. When you get to the microphone, so she can keep a record.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. I'm Helen Sawani. We owned 149 Pioneer Drive, which is the building right on the side of this building. We used to own 139 Pioneer, and we sold that property to them because they were using our driveway to cut through to go to the back, to their building. My attorney advised us, I just lost my husband, he was in charge of all this, but I'm stepping in. They're using our driveway to cut to the back and go through their side. They have blocked me in such a way that I cannot even use my own building to park. And I know I'm not an attorney and I don't have an attorney, but I just need to know what is this going to do for me? Because as it is now, all their employees are parking in my driveway and in my parking space. For me to get into my own building, I can't get through. So I need to know it used to be an easement, which I was granted that easement years ago. I owned that building more than 20 years. What is that going to do for me if they doing all this?
Okay, man, we're going to ask some of those questions and try and get you some of the answers. Thank you for speaking. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard on this application? Not seeing anyone, we're going to turn to Mr. Colgan for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This application, as stated by the applicant, proposes a redemption center for recyclable materials. Historically, as per the CO, the building has been used as a warehouse with some outside storage in the past. The primary concerns with transfer stations in general are traffic routes of the trucks and the screening of the site. There are residences to the south, and Pioneer Drive as a 2-lane roadway with heavy traffic at times. In addition, the site isn't large, and the existing building and truck scale limits the site circulation and the opportunities for screening. A few variances will be necessary from the Zoning Board of Appeals, including side yard and rear yard setbacks, floor area ratio, and being within 200 feet of a residential use or zone. These impacts have to be weighed with the proposed aesthetic improvements that the applicant is proposing, how the site historically has been used, and what else it could potentially be used for given the current zoning. The staff recommends that the board reserve decision in order to review the comments we've heard tonight, as well as to address any further site improvements with the applicant to make the site more functional and perhaps a better neighbor.
Thank you. I'm going to go to Mr. Brown.
Oh, yes, I guess it would be for the applicant, Mr. Mumir. In reference to the questions that the woman just brought up, how is this going to be separated from her property?
I believe it was always an access, and I don't believe that it was purchased. I was just informed one of the owners and operators is here tonight. I told him it was good that he came. You said it was an abandoned road, but it was a common access, and they don't park on that property, and she doesn't own it. That's never come up, that issue.
Right, but are you parking on it?
The area I believe that's being in question is located on the sketch labeled Pine Grove Boulevard. And you can see the neighbor is tax lot 62.1.
On the other side here.
I believe we're talking about the west side. And so you can see the property for that parcel is 40 feet wide. And then the Pine Grove Boulevard, an abandoned road, which does allow access to the site. You can see the directional arrows there on the west side of that building.
Can you question that? Yeah, what's on the site plan? It doesn't match our aerials. That's what I'm just trying to look at. Just give us a second. I just want to have Hannah pull something up.
He just informed me that they didn't buy the property from this lady who's a trust. And it's an abandoned road, and they don't park there. So like I said, this issue's never come up here.
Yeah, I think we're going to need staff to clarify that. Certainly what we're seeing here, maybe a paper road, it may be a lot, we're not sure. Or if it's still owned by the person who spoke, or if it's owned by the applicants. We certainly need clarification on that before we can proceed.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, that's exactly. I would just like a clarification on before I make a decision.
What is the site currently used for?
It's a redemption center for plastic bottles and cans.
So that's what it's currently used for?
That's what it's currently used for. They've been there for 6 years. I guess he told me they bought it from a party. We can all think of who they are. I don't know the name. He doesn't know the name of someone who bought that parcel from a tax sale, I would assume. And it was not the people who are here tonight.
And the use is remaining the same?
Absolutely. There's really no intensification. if anything, by taking down that structure. And that structure was taken down because of worried about, snow and a roof and things like that. So we've improved the site. On the east side, there is a residential zoning with no home. So there might be property that, Sean informed us of later, and there are some issues that we haven't had a chance to, but he's spoken to us earlier, that it's zoned residential. They've tried to buy that, but there's no house there and no one lives there. So that would be on the east side. And I guess you said you were putting 35 feet of a buffer there. So if anything, the site's been improved. It's been continuous use. And as I said, the building was CO'd in 1954, so.
Mr. Frugiero?
Yeah, I just, Mr. Lemire, the materials that are brought onto site, do they get stored inside the building and processed, or they get stored outside?
They're stored outside.
Okay, and how long are they
Can
stored?
I just interrupt? Can you repeat that or state his name, just
Yeah,
so
come
we
on.
keep that as part of the record?
Okay.
I'm Ralph Martucci, owner of Arbor Recycling. So what we do there is we bring in bottles and cans that are part of the bottle deposit law. We bring them in, we process them, and we ship them out.
Okay. Now, just a little more detail. When the bottles and cans are brought in, where are they stored? Are
Store them in the building,
you stored in the building?
and then we switch them out.
So there won't be any piles of debris outside?
There's no piles of debris outside.
Okay.
And we coordinate that with the DEC. As of today, they come by and check and make sure that we don't store material
Okay.
outside.
And then lastly, when are those materials brought in? And then after they're packaged, when do the trucks typically ship out?
Daily.
What I'm trying to assess is the time of day. Because Pioneer Drive has an awful lot of traffic, and that's one of the concerns that planning staff has raised. But if the trucks are coming in, say, before peak hours, that's a benefit. If they're leaving the site after peak hours, that's a benefit as well. So that's what I'm trying to assess. When are the trucks coming in and
The
out?
trucks leave at 6:30 in the morning.
Okay,
10 o'clock in the morning. They return back periodically throughout the day, anywhere from 11 o'clock up until about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. For the
Yes, ma'am.
applicant, on that same subject, is the railroad used in any way, shape, or form?
Right now, the railroad's not used, no. There's a rail back there.
Is
There's
there
a store back
siding?
there.
Because it sounds to me like that could be in the future a possibility, which may be a good one. I don't know if it's planned or used as far as you're saying you're shipping it out, you're shipping everything out by truck. It seems pretty clear from your conversation. But I'm just curious whether or not the siding's ever been used. It seems to be a bit of a waste being against a railroad you don't use, but
Right now, we're not using it.
yeah, and I'm sure the expense of converting is not easy, but, okay, just so we're sure we know what we have. That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you,
And
Mr. Matamore.
Just
Any-
one other thing about the house.
Yes.
I never met her. We bought it from ABCDFGZ, some type of name, LLP. There was a tax lien. I guess they bought the tax lien and they held it for quite a few years. We ultimately bought the house from them. I don't know who she is.
All right, so you do own that property next to it, it's not a
I
road?
do. And we bought the one she's talking about, is a house that was there, pre-existent, and we took the house down because the house was unsafe.
So just to clarify, what's marked on the site plan here is Pine Grove Boulevard is the lot we're talking about that you own?
So, yes, so if you're looking at the property.
Right. Okay, so you own you're telling me the property between her building and your, right. Okay. And ma'am, can you just point out for us on that where you're talking about there's an issue with parking and you being blocked in, which side of your property you're talking about?
This is, where is Pioneer Building? This is my building.
Yes.
Okay. 139 used to be here. My attorney, George Cavallis, this is years ago. This is not 16.
If you could just point out, I don't want to get into when this happened. I just want to know where you're being blocked in.
141. I used to own 139.
Okay.
I sold it to the previous landlord of this business here because they were using my driveway. And we agreed that selling this property, they can use this entrance.
So just to clarify for me, where is it right now you're being blocked in, you're saying? Just point to on the map. So you're saying on, okay.
They're using my driveway to
Got you.
go through the back.
Got you.
Even your workers,
Okay.
and I'm trying to work on my own building.
Thank you for that. We will get back with staff and find out if that's a paper street or what that actually, that section is. So we will get back to you. We'll give you someone's card and you can follow up with staff on that as well. We're gonna have to ask questions and find out more on that.
Did you know that this back here used to be an easement?
We don't have that information here tonight, so we're gonna have to have staff go back and pull the records on it. And we'll give you a business card for someone in the office who can get back to you on that. We need to look into it. We're not prepared to answer it this evening,
Thank you for bringing that up.
but we thank you for raising it so that we can look into it. Are there? Are there further questions from the board? Would the applicant like to add anything further? I take it that you had the issues that were raised by planning staff, you're willing to sit down with them and review and try and work through them and see if we can make this work?
Yes, that's correct. I just had one question. I think Mr. Colgan stated on the record that we were over on FAR. I don't think that that's correct. So I just want to make sure that, I don't know if we're.
Ms. Colvin, the question is whether or not they're over on FAR.
We did inquire with the zoning division, and they raised that as an issue, I believe because of the zoning change. It may need to be reapplied for, so. if-
It also could be because of the portion of the building that was taken down.
It's possible too.
Okay, so I just want to.
We'll look into that. We'll verify that before we bring it back to the board, but
I
that
believe
was,
that it is.
as per the zoning division.
Anything further? Is there a motion? Mr. Frugieri.
I'll make a motion that we close this hearing and reserve decision so that the applicant can have some time to work with planning on the issues that were raised this evening.
Thank you. There's a motion by Mr. Frugieri to close the public hearing and reserve the decision. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions were reserved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 5 on the agenda, Town Board Application Public Hearing. Michael Siwiak, I hope I said that right. Care of South Second Street Enterprise LLC, CZ 2021-015, south side of South Second Street, approximately 931.62 feet east of Pond Road, Ronkonkoma, 0 South Second Street. Applicant requests a change of zone from Industrial 1 to Industrial 2 in order to use the property for outdoor storage of construction materials. Site plan modifications are required as part of this application. Good evening.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board and planning staff. My name is Janice Whalen. My office is at 23 Green Street, Suite 302, Huntington, New York, and I represent South Second Street Enterprises LLC. We respectfully seek a change of zone to I-2 for a vacant site located on the south side of South Second Street in Ronkonkoma, located approximately 923 feet east of Pond Road, currently located in the I-1 district. Chairman, my question exactly, I confirmed with my client the correct pronunciation of his name, and it's Mr. Michael Shivietz. Did I get that right, Michael?
I was way off then. I apologize.
So was I. Appearing with me this evening is Mr. Michael Shivietz, who is the principal of Phoenix Scaffolding. It's a 20-year-old family business located in the boroughs that puts scaffolding on all sorts of commercial buildings, including Fordham, Mount Sinai, Central Park, lots of businesses. This is not going to be used as an operational site, just to be certain. This is a secondary storage site that we're seeking to use it for elements of scaffolding, like aluminum, lumber, which will all be contained in an organized racking system. Ms. Jacqueline Paranto is our engineer and architect, and she will answer any questions that I can't. Just by way of a little housekeeping, here's all the cards that we received and my business.
Thank you. We'll make those part of the record.
I also have a letter in support. I think I had 100% of the cards that I sent out resulted in either a call or a signed card. And the gentleman who owns the property immediately across the street, we spoke with him at length. He's very comfortable with our operations, and he gave us a letter in support.
We'll make that part of the record also.
Thank you very much. Our site measures approximately 46,000 square feet, a little over an acre. The site is unimproved and bordered by I-2 to the rear of us. I believe there's a very big concrete manufacturing company and commercial uses all across South 2nd Street. Again, we seek to utilize the site to store materials, stacked aluminum, steel, and aluminum and lumber panels. In our conversations with Mr. Colgan, we have placed the lumber in a place that he felt comfortable that it's far enough away from the other materials. Again, it's a secondary storage site. It's not operational. We're anticipating a few truck deliveries per week, not on a daily basis. I know that's a big concern that South 2nd Street not be added to a lot more traffic than's already there, but we don't intend to be anything but a good neighbor there. We will have one forklift on site. We've discussed this matter at length with planning and agreed to a 10-foot road dedication as has been requested of my clients on other properties on South 2nd Street. We propose 6 foot of chain link fencing atop 2-foot concrete blocks. The reason for that is that when we purchased the site, there were numerous blocks on the site, and it turned out to be much more expensive to remove them than to reconfigure them to add to the fencing. So we're going to be going to the zoning board to request a variance for the setback. If we in fact had the blocks 4 feet off or 8 feet off of the sides, we'd have almost no area for storage, and we certainly wanted to keep 30 foot of width so that, God forbid, any fire safety trucks had to come by, there's enough aisle width. So I believe Ms. Paranto did a great job in configuring everything with the safety concerns. In terms of landscaping, the regulations require 20% of site landscaping or 9,000 square feet. Planning advised that they could live with a 75-foot depth of landscaping from the front yard. Our plans actually show 90 feet of landscaping, but we could recapture about 30 feet more of storage, so we'd prefer to align our plans with what planning had told us that they wanted. So even though we're showing 90, we'd really prefer if we could do the 75 feet. That's going to result in a waiver of about 8.85% of overall landscaping. But to put that in context, we still have more than 50% of our landscaping in the front yard. We exceed the front yard landscaping requirement, even though we're a little bit short on overall. So we would have the 75 feet, so nothing would be visible on South 2nd. It would really be a tremendous improvement to the visual scape along that street. And we're also going to put some landscaping along the western property boundary. I believe that there's a building back there. So let's see. We also seek a waiver from the masonry enclosure. We would like to put a chain link fence enclosure, but certainly that would also be screened with landscaping, and nothing will be visible from the street. We've got a chain link fence gate of about 26 feet, and it certainly can accommodate our flatbed trucks that will be doing the deliveries and any fire vehicles. And again, the lumber is separated from the other storage materials. There will be a little bit of electricity and water at the site, but there won't be any building. We don't expect to have any employees there. There's no parking requirement or demand even, because things are going to be dropped off and things are going to be brought out. And that's really all the activity that's going to be at the site. We really hope that we've presented a good application and the best use of this property.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I do not have any cards on this application. Did anyone come in who wishes to be heard? Not seeing anyone, I'm going to turn to Mr. Colgan to give us a report, and then we'll come back for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As stated by the applicant, this proposes to rezone the property to Industrial 2 for the outdoor storage of construction materials. The property was recently the subject of a similar rezoning proposal, but was withdrawn a few years ago. Generally speaking, the planning staff has been supportive of Industrial 2 zoning in this area. The property is surrounded by Industrial 1 and existing Industrial 2 zoning. The site plan as drafted shows significant front yard landscaping and with suitable for fire safety access. The board may want to explore additional screening for the cleaner industrial uses to the west. But the staff does believe that there's a sound concept here. But based on that, the staff would recommend the board reserve decision to review any comments heard tonight.
So I guess the other questions from the board. I mean, I just have one question related to Ms. Colgan's comment on the west, was the westerly side. Is there anything else you can do in terms of what he mentioned for screening?
This is the road where the lighting is provided on the west side. Are you specifically speaking about this theater? During our meeting,
I think you've addressed that then. Okay. Any further questions from the board?
Well, I thank you for putting landscaping on Second Street.
One side at a time. I have a question. Assuming, and we're hoping that we'll be recommended to the town board, would I make my application to the ZBA now or wait until after the town board?
Sorry, I was.
No, that's okay. Just in terms of timing, should we make our application to the zoning board for the setback of the block and the fence now, or should we wait till after town board?
Well, I'll turn to Mr. Colgan on that in terms of town board of that. I can't answer that for you.
I can't. That's an interesting question. Because that particular variance, I don't believe is germane to the zoning district, you may be able to proceed. I would check with either Mary or Teresa in zoning to verify that. It's possible, but it's not guaranteed.
Okay. Just want to make sure that we follow the protocol.
If there are no further questions from the board, I'm going to turn to Mr. Frugieri. Anything further from the applicant?
No.
Mr. Frugieri for a motion.
I'm going to make a motion that we close this public hearing tonight and grant the application conditioned on, it'll be the new site plan with the 75-foot setback, and it's conditioned on working out covenants and restrictions with planning staff.
Absolutely.
There's a motion. 1 second. There's a motion by Mr. Frugieri to grant the application subject to a new site plan changing from 90 feet to 75 feet, as well as working out the covenants and restrictions. There's a second.
I'll second.
By Mr. Brown, I already have.
Okay.
I'm going to call the vote on that. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, granted. Ms. Whalen, did you have something else you wanted to add?
I just wanted to ask if there are draft covenants, or I should be in touch with you this week.
To reach out to
Very
Mr.
good.
Colgan and, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Good night.
Have a good evening. Item 6 on the agenda, major subdivision decision item, Settlers Road subdivision, Hop Hog, MS 2007-005, northerly terminus of Settlers Road, 120 feet north of Old Post Road, Hop Hog. Applicant requests a 90-day extension of the final approval on a 10-lot major subdivision. I do not see the applicant, so I'm going to go right to Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This application was last heard on May 26th of this year, granted a 90-day extension to fulfill all requirements of the final resolution. As stated on the last few of these hearings, the applicant is still working on a release of the mortgage premises being recorded at the Suffolk County Clerk's Office, as that is required in order for the title company to verify to the town that no mortgages exist on the property and any portions being offered for eventual dedication or easements. That document was submitted back in December based on significant delays in processing, recording, and release of any documents. It is still not done. The property owners are in the process of obtaining the required performance bond. Their insurance company actually has reached out to us and requested additional information from staff at this time in regards to the bond figures. Those details are included in the attached correspondence from their attorney, dated August 17th, 2021. So we are going to be in contact with them and provide them the information that they need so they can proceed with that. A 180-day extension was requested. However, only 90 days at a time are permitted by New York State town law. The last extension ran until August 24th, 2021. However, the request was received a week prior to that expiration. Based on this, staff recommends the board grant the allowable 90-day extension of the final approval, subject to the modified final resolution retroactive to August 24th.
Thank you, Mr. Gonzalez. Any questions from Mr. Gonzalez? Not seeing any. Is there a motion?
I make a
Mr. Matamore.
motion, Mr. Chairman, to grant the application subject to the provisions as stated by Mr. Tanner.
There is a motion by Mr. Matamore to grant the application subject to the provisions stated by Mr. Gonzalez. All in favor? Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Moriarty. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, it's granted. Item 7 on the agenda, site plan discussion, decision item, Tom Galligan, SP 2021-011, south side of South Service Road of Sunrise Highway, number 700, 1,000 feet east of Nichols Road, Holbrook, New York. Applicant requests the planning board approve the traffic study findings for a change of use from retail to medical office as stipulated in property covenants from SP 2002-044. Good evening to the applicant.
Good evening, Graham Weber, Weber Law Group, 290 Broad Hollow Road in Melville. So as was stated, good evening, it's good to see you all. As was stated, this is for a decision item to accept a traffic impact study, which is a requirement. This site was constructed as a furniture store. It's on Sunrise Highway. This board, it's been 3 different furniture stores. I think it's outlived its useful life as a furniture store. It was built as an Ethan Allen, and then it was an Ashley Furniture, and then it became a Jennifer Furniture. It's now vacant. As part of the original approval, there was a requirement that any change of use required an updated traffic impact study. This board actually, prior to COVID, approved a 10,000 square foot expansion of the building to add a daycare center to the existing retail building. That project is not moving forward. During COVID, Emblem Health stepped forward with a proposal for a medical office in the existing footprint, no expansion of the building. So we've gone through the planning process, the engineering process, but because of that requirement and the covenants and restrictions, a new traffic impact study was prepared, submitted, reviewed by the town's outside consultant. Inju Valari from Stonefield Engineering is here. If the board has any questions on that report, Eric Mine is here from Bowler Engineering if there are any questions overall. But again, this is simply for a decision item to accept the traffic impact study that's been independently reviewed by the town's consultants.
Thank you. Let's go to the staff report. If we have questions, we'll
Thank you.
come back to that. Mr. Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This 3.73 acre split zone B1, B3 property, as stated, is improved with the now vacant and former Ashley Furniture's retail store, originally CO'd in 2004. The proposed change of use to a medical office. There was a site plan application before this board in June of 2018 for that proposed building addition and a change of use to the Learning Experience Child Daycare Center. That decision was reserved, and subsequently the project did not materialize after that. As stated by the applicant's attorney, the covenants on the property originating from SP 2002-044 required any change of use from the original furniture store provide an updated traffic study for approval by the planning board. The applicant hired Stonefield Engineering and Design. The study went through a few rounds of comments by the town's traffic consultant, LK McLean Associates, and a final memo was issued that stated the following: there is sufficient parking for the use, there are no inherent safety issues, and the roadway capacity is sufficient to accommodate this project. McLean Associates did recommend sidewalk be installed along the Sunrise Highway service road frontage. However, the New York State DOT also issued a memo stating that the project would not have a significant impact on the highway and that no permit was required at this time. So at this time, sidewalk will not be installed. Based on this, staff recommends the board grant the acceptance of the traffic and parking study.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion? Oh, there's a question. Mr. Brown.
There we go. Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to grant the application and make the acceptance of the traffic parking study and grant it subject to the conditions.
There's a motion by Mr. Brown to grant the acceptance of the traffic parking study subject to any conditions. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Frugiero, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Granted. Ms. Cruz, that wasn't a question, was it? Was that a second? I'll let you make the final motion if you like. Mr. Matamore, is there a motion?
There's a motion that I move to adjourn.
Motion by Mr. Matamore to adjourn the meeting, second by Ms. Moriarty. All in favor, opposed, abstentions, we're adjourned. Thank you.